What's up, YouTube? PokePrimer here, Brian, ready to deliver you another new draft analysis. I know I'm in quite a few these days. I'm just trying to keep myself busy and, have some fun. But we got a new draft analysis here, and this is for the PRD. Pokemon Remastered Draft or Remix Draft, I think. It's something along those lines. Let me actually look for the actual name so that I know what I'm talking about, so I'm not just speaking a bunch of dumb shit. I should have something here relating to it not too long ago. Wow, I get a lot of notifications apparently daily. That's fun. What do we got? Yes, found it, kind of. No, nope, never mind, didn't find the actual name. Found the group that it's related to. Ah, Pokemon Remastered Draft. Yes, because it's from Goons Gaming Remastered. It's a group on Facebook. It's featuring a lot of guys from the NPBF, a lot of guys from New Frontier. It's a nice big mixture of those two groups, and it's really exciting because this is just like a straight balls to the wall draft situation. It is only Galar decks, from what I could tell, but it is an Uber's Galar decks situation with the inclusion of Gmaxes and having a Dmax Captain. So, yeah, a lot of things with that. So they had like a separate like little tier for mons that they would have as a potential Dmax Captain, and then you selected it, and you had points to select your Gmax and your Uber. There were 3 tiers of Uber, and there were 3 tiers of Gmaxes. And each tier from the top bottom down ranged from 250 to 200 to 150 points. So, a couple different ways you could like balance that out. You can get a really good Uber, and then you can get like a quote unquote subpar Gmax or whatever. Or vice versa. So, a lot of different ways you could go about using that. But yeah, it's a really, really fun. I think it's going to be a good time. Attacking the damn carpet. Cats, I swear to God. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, this is going to be a fun draft. And to start things off, I drafted a mon that I know personally, from experience, is really good in Uber's drafts. That is Kyogre. Seaman the Kyogre. And you will see very soon what my name scheme is for this, because it is one that I am very, very excited about using. We have Seaman the Kyogre. This is, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's a Yu Yu Hakusho name theme. Seaman is a part of the group of 7 psychics around Sensui during during one of the major story arcs of the season of the series. Like there's always like the early Spirit Detective arcs where he's just doing all of his cases, and then there's the Dark Tournament arc, and now we're in the middle of the Kakai Barrier / Sensui arc, and Seaman is a part of that. He is a psychic who controls water by dripping his blood into it. His power is really strong in the rain, so what better character than Kyogre to can't speak, to represent that. So Kyogre, for those who do not know, is an NPBF champion twice in the same season, because we did Ubers for both D-League and regular league, and in both D-League and regular league, the champions of both that season had Kyogre on their rosters. If that doesn't tell you how good this Pokemon is, I honestly don't know what to tell you. I honestly don't know how else to convince you. This thing is insane. The Drizzle giving it access to boosted water moves, while also having such an obscene special attack stat, is just unheard of. If you do not have a water immunity, you do not have a switch into this Pokemon. So yeah, Kyogre is going to be a massive threat to everyone in this league. It's going to be a lot of fun to use, I'm sure. It's got insane natural bulk, obviously, as being an Uber. It's got good speed. It's got a decent attack stat if I want to run a mixed Kyogre, if I want to run fully physical Kyogre, stuff like that. All options I can definitely utilize. It'll be a lot of fun. Kyogre is a beast. I'm super hyped to have it. And I've done everything I can to use Kyogre's range to support my team, as well as picking up things that support Kyogre incredibly well. So, moving onward, we have our Gmax pick, which I think was way too cheap. In my opinion. In my opinion, this thing was too cheap. We got Gmax Flapple. Now, I used Gmax Flapple in a league that I wasn't taking super seriously, and that thing was just too ridiculous. I just it just nuked and ripped things apart, plain and simple. It was so strong. Hustle, giving it that attack boost, and you keep that attack boost when you are Gmaxed, but you do not have the problem of having to miss your attacks all the time, because in Gmax you are when you are Gmaxed, you cannot miss. Max moves cannot miss. So basically, you have a free choice band attached to you when you're Gmaxed, and you just get to nuke shit. Plus having access to Dragon Dance, so I can boost up before I max, and then proceed to just sweep from there. And hope I don't miss once I'm out of max, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, this thing is so strong, so incredibly strong, that, you might not even need to boost up before you max to claim a few KOs. Plus, having access to max Airstream, with moves like Dual Wing Beat and whatnot, is insane. This thing is nuts to face off against, and I'm so happy that I got Gmax Flapple again. This thing is going to be an absolute monster. Plus, this thing supports Kyogre incredibly well. Being a grass and dragon type, it swallows grass and electric type moves that Kyogre does not want to deal with perfectly. It eats them up like it's nothing. And Kyogre, in turn, chews up electric type moves, or not, ice type moves that Flapple doesn't appreciate. So they support each other incredibly well. I call Flapple Gmax Kurama, because Kurama obviously is a plant user in the show. He uses plants to an incredibly terrifying degree. And, it's just one of the cooler members of the show, honestly. He's one of the cooler characters on the show. I'm in my, 4th rewatch in the past, year and a half. And I've gotten to appreciate Kurama so much more through all these rewatches. Every time I, pick up on little subtle details of his character and, how he reacts and acts in combat and whatnot. And it's just so cool. He's just so cool. So I'm starting to appreciate him more and more, and so I think he's a good representation for this one. The next mon we picked up is going to be our Dynamax Captain, and when I saw this mon down there, especially when I already had Rain on my team, I was like, there's no way I can't grab this. We're picking up Kuwabara, the Escavalier, as our Dynamax Captain. Now, yeah, this thing is going to be insane. Because, one, it only has one weakness to fire. It's a 4 times weakness, but it's still only one weakness, right? What does Rain do? Weakens fire-type moves. So imagine an Escavalier whose HP just got doubled, and it's in the Rain, not having to care about your fire-type moves very much. What do you do then? You just get max quaked and you die. Or you just get max. You just get high. You just get max. What the fuck's the max water move? I don't remember what the max. Geyser. You just get max geyser and die. This thing is nuts. This thing is absolutely insane paired with Kyogre. It's a true demon. Now, one thing of note, I cannot bring both my Gmax and my Dmax Captain to the same game. So, I won't be able to bluff that. If they see one, they'll know which one I'm going to be maxing, which is completely fine. It kind of makes sense to keep it balanced a little bit using both. But, still going to be interesting. It's an incredibly strong Pokemon. It has some good coverage moves. It honestly can just really, really mess up a lot of teams by itself, especially with the Rain support. I called it Kuwabara because he has the 2 lances, and that kind of reminds me of Kuwabara wielding his double spirit swords. Yeah, so that's our Escavalier. Then hopped into the A tier, and I picked up Suzaku the Tapu Koko. Suzaku is the leader of the Saint Beasts. He uses electrical type powers. And he also looks kind of prissy, so fairy kind of works for him too. But yeah. Suzaku is going to be insanely good for this, because one, it's a Tapu Koko that can run Thunder as an option now, which is really good. Tapu Koko that should have gotten Play Rough this generation, but didn't. This Game Freak is cowardly. But even still, it's a Pokemon that has a lot of options. It's always been a hard sought after Pokemon in Draft League, pretty much since its release. And I think alongside the mons I've grabbed so far, this thing is insane. This thing is going to be insane. It has good coverage on both the physical and special side. It hits incredibly hard thanks to its terrain. Yeah, Tapu Koko is just amazing. It has defog and stuff as well for hazards. It has screens. It's just... This team is getting fucking wild. I'm so happy about this team. Next up we have Yusuke the Savali. I didn't really have much else to say about Tapu Koko. I'm sorry. I called this thing Yusuke, the main character, Yusuke Urameshi, spirit detective, whatnot. Mainly because, like, Savali is usually kind of like the star of the show. He can be whatever he wants to be. And power his way through teams. Just on his sheer brute force and talent alone. So I felt like Savali was the best one to go off of. Plus, its base form kind of feels like a generic anime protagonist, even though Yusuke is far from that, in my personal opinion. I think he's a little bit more complex than a lot of other shonen protagonists. That's my opinion. Having the ability to be any type I want is really, really good. I can build this thing in whatever way best suits the matchup. And then I can just kind of use it to body my opponents pretty effectively. Having access to Parting Shot and Defog makes this thing incredibly supportive. And multi-attack getting buffed this generation is really, really good for it as well. Base 120 power multi-attack is fucking strong. Even if you resist it, it's really strong. Taking it is not something you want to try to do. So, overall, I think this thing is going to be insanely good for the team. Base 95 across the board is really good. And something you definitely should not, definitely cannot shake a stick at. It's more than powerful enough to warrant an inclusion on an Uber's draft team, without a shadow of a doubt. Next up, we have Botan, the Cresselia. I called it Botan. Botan is the Grim Reaper. And this thing will take you to your demise. She's also like a very feminine character. That's pretty much about it. I don't really have a lot of reasoning for this one. I just think it was a very feminine character, but it felt like too regal of a character to like just call it like Keiko or something like Yusuke's girlfriend. Didn't really feel right. But Cresselia is bulk incarnate. Cresselia is pure unadulterated bulk. They decided to give it stored power now, so that's fucking not okay. But it has access to things like Lunar Dance as well, to completely refresh a Pokemon in the back of the party, which is something that has so much potential to be useful later on in the season. Or late into a game, at any point in time. Trick Room, which could make our Dmax Captain even stronger. Which is very, very nice as well. Like, it gives us another option of something we can potentially do. If we see a matchup where a Escavalier can really go in, we can have Trick Room and then potentially Lunar Dance late game get into Escavalier. Just so many different options for what we can do with Cresselia. Setup Sweeper. It's just so good. It's such a good Pokemon. I love Cresselia. Just look at this bulk. Look at this beautiful bulk. Please just look at this bulk. I love it so much. Cresselia is so good. Okay. Next up, we have Hiei, the Gallerium Ultra. And this one, I feel like if you've watched Yu Yu Hakusho, you kind of understand why I called it Hiei. Gallerium Ultra is a dark, fiery bird, and Hiei's signature technique is the Dragon of the Darkness Flames. So even though it's not a dragon type, obviously, Gallerium Ultra feels like the closest representation I can get to the Dragon of the Darkest Flames. Plus, this is a mon that I've really, really wanted to use for a little while now, especially recently in JLPC, where I got beat the fuck down by one. Where, honestly, I think if he had landed his attacks appropriately, I think I would have lost to it against Jaminape, so really, really glad that I didn't lose to it. But, yeah, this thing is incredibly strong. It's got way more bulk than it has any right to have, in my opinion. And I think overall, I think this mon is slept on. I definitely feel like this mon is slept on. More than it should be. Because it's a Pokemon that, like, you can't underestimate this thing or you'll lose. You just lose. I don't think there's really any debate there. You just lose to it. It hits hard. It has so many potential opportunities to set up. It's bulky enough that weakness policy can regularly work on it. Like, without any real issue, you can just get off a weakness policy without struggling to do so. You don't have to put yourself into crazy situations to do it. You can just get a weakness policy boost, which is insane to me. It's a Pokemon that is incredibly strong and diverse in what it can do. So it's definitely going to be one that I'm going to enjoy using a lot this season. And I'm sure that it's going to be, it's going to put in a crazy amount of work. Literal only downside to this Pokemon is they didn't give it any form of recovery besides rest. Which to me is bullshit. You couldn't give the Galarian birds a roost. That's all. That's all we wanted. But okay, whatever. I still think this Pokemon is going to be amazing. And I'm excited. I'm super excited to use it. So yeah, that's our Gallerium Ultra. Next up, we have our fighting type for the team, and that's going to be Genkai the Mienshao. Genkai is a martial arts master. She is the teacher of Yusuke, and so I felt like having Mienshao be this astute teacher of his, I think it fit very nicely. So Mienshao has always been a good Pokemon. Always hit incredibly hard with that base 125 attack, and been able to utilize that base 95 special attack in certain situations, with that base 105 speed, being really, really useful. But then they decided to give it close combat, so now it doesn't have to just run high jump kick for really hard hits, and that completely changed the game. This mon went from being insanely good to nuts overnight. And basically, now this mon is just cracked up. This mon is cracked. It's so strong. I love Mienshao. It hits so incredibly hard. It is fast. It's dangerous in every conceivable way. It has access to great abilities, not being able to flinch. There's plenty of situations where I can see that being useful. Regenerator, obviously, always useful. Literally, Regenerator can never be a bad ability. And if I still want to run a high jump kick sometimes, I can just run Reckless high jump kick and make that be a thing. No matter what, there's an ability that I can utilize with Genkai pretty much every single week. and utilize it to a point where it's going to do well. I love this Pokemon. So I'm super excited to have this. This is going to be nice. Next up, we can start finishing out our cores. It's time to finish out our Fire, Water, Grass core. And we're going to grab a low-tier Fire type. We actually got him for pretty cheap because they put any NFE as like a D tier. And this counted. So we got Reboot, and we called him Koenma because he's a little dude. And he kind of reminds me of Koenma, walking around with his little baby pacifier all the time. And one thing about Reboot is he will have access to Libero. So, we have a type-changing beast on our team who not only is going to hit hard with his fire-type moves and whatnot, but will always have stab on stuff. We can change our typings to deal with specific situations much better. Still has a decent speed stat, 94. I think just overall, I think Reboot is super strong. It's gonna be a lot of fun because I really like Reboot. I really think Reboot is a good Pokemon. I think it has a lot of potential to be incredibly strong for us here. And yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited. I had Reboot at one point and I didn't really get to use it for very long. But my brain shut off for a second there. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's gonna be a really strong Pokemon, and I'm excited to have it. To follow that up, I wanted to grab a Ghost type. I also needed a Ground type, and I found a great one. Yeah, so this is good. I needed a Ground, I needed a Ghost type, and so I grabbed Gourmet the Runerigus. Now, the reason I called it Gourmet is this refers to another one of the psychics from Sensui's group during that arc. Gourmet was a guy who could basically, if he consumed something, he took its ability. And so I kind of thought that kind of fit nicely with Wandering Spirit, how if anything touches him, they switch abilities. It's kind of similar to that in a sense, so I figured that was like an interesting name. I really fumbled over this name for a while. But this is the one that made the most sense to me in the end, and I'm actually really proud of it, so works out nicely. But yeah, really, really good bulk on this thing. Really solid physical attack as well. Access to Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rocks, which is great. Will-O-Wisp. We can use Poltergeist, which is a strong ghosty move. Another Trick Room Setter, potentially, if I ever want to utilize that. You know, it's an option that's there for me, which is cool. Iron Defense Body Press shenanigans. I have Haze to stop setup sweepers. The Rune is pretty cool, man. The Rune is really cool. I think it's going to be a fun Pokemon to utilize for sure. Here, it's going to be a good one. This is going to be really cool. I love Runerigus. Excuse me. I've been having issues with my tooth, and drinking stuff makes the pain go away temporarily. But yeah, Runerigus is a fun Pokemon to use. I've utilized it before in the past on a more Trick Room-centric team, which it did pretty well with. But this team is not so much centered around Trick Room, so I feel like I have a little bit more room to do different things with this thing. So I'm sure that it will be a very, very fun Pokemon to utilize. Plus, Runerigus is just cool. I love Runerigus' design. For the last few rounds, I needed very few typings still on a team. The only type I think I ended up not getting was Ice, which I don't really care about at all. It doesn't really provide me any real benefit. But for my Poison type for the team, I picked up Chew the Weezing. Now, Chew is a character... granted, Weezing's all about that smoke, but Chew... I'm going to say, for sake of reference, this Weezing is just fumes, alcoholic fumes, because Chew was a raging alcoholic who used alcohol to power himself up in battle against Yusuke in the Dark Tournament. And I felt like Weezing was the best Pokemon to, look kind of goofy. Plus, I didn't want Chew to be left out. Chew versus Yusuke is actually, in my personal opinion, one of my in my watching of it, is one of my favorite fights in the entirety of Yu Yu Hakusho. I don't know what it is. It's just Chew's such a fun character, and their back and forth is so good. Plus, the knife edge deathmatch at the end is just sublime. Such a well put together fight sequence for the show. I had to have Chew on the team. And granted, even though it does have Levitate as one of its abilities, they gave it other abilities now too, including neutralizing gas. Which allows me to make Weezing a grounded poison type, so we can absorb Toxic Spikes. By the way, it also does have Toxic Spikes. Will-O-Wisp, decent, really, really good coverage. It's a good Pokemon. Yeah, I love Weezing. And then the last Mon, bottom tier Mon. This is a bottom tier name, but I don't think it's, a bottom tier Mon entirely. We have Genbu, the Regirock. Genbu was one of the 4 Saint Beasts. He was a big rock golem dude who traveled inside and out of any rock surface around him, any concrete surface around him. He could go into it and then come back out of it anywhere else. It was really interesting ability to show early on in the season, early on in the series. But Regirock is pretty sick, man, not gonna lie. It gives us another Stealth Rocker, which is pretty cool. They gave it Body Press this generation, which is really nice, especially with that base 200 defense. Things like counter and whatnot, and all the elemental punches and such. Just good coverage overall across the board with this thing. It's a really, really fun Pokemon to use. I've utilized it a lot in the past. Not a lot to say about Regirock. It's just a really, really solid Mon in general. It's just a really, really solid Pokemon, and I'm happy to have Regirock again. It's been a while since I've used it. Haven't used it yet personally in Generation 8, so this is my first chance to give it a shot. And yeah, that rounds out our PRD draft. While I am recording this several weeks before, probably like a week or two before the actual league itself starts, you will be seeing this very shortly before matches actually start going up. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. If you guys have enjoyed, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe if you have not already. But until next time, guys, I'm PokePrimer, and I'm signing off. Peace.